Travillian Next is a division of Travillian, a financial services specialist search and talent advisory firm. Since inception, the Travillian team has dedicated itself to enhancing the return on investment of a company's most important resource, its people.
Hello. Welcome to another great episode of Travillian Next. Very excited about this episode today. We have two of my favorite people in banking, innovation brains, a lot of innovation minds on this podcast today. But I'd like to welcome Chris Stanley from Georgia Banking Company, SVP of Payments and Technology. And I'd also like to introduce Christian Ruppe, Chief Innovation Officer from Colony Bank, both banks in Georgia, which brings us to today's topic. They are also the co-chairs of the Innovation Committee for the CBA of Georgia, Community Bankers Association of Georgia, which Travillian actually just joined as an associate member. Really great organization, I think, run by John McNair, over 150 banks. And really the mission is to help the Georgia banks in different areas. And your area is focused on technology innovation, which of course is a critical topic for all banks today, especially community banks, especially smaller banks. And Chris, we talked the other day. I'll start with you. You were kind of there from the beginning when the Innovation Committee started, 5-6 years ago. What kind of spurred that idea for the CBA of Georgia, that we really need to have a committee focused on, what's next in banking, what type of technology we're going to need, what are some of the ideas our member banks should be thinking about?
Yeah, so the Community Bankers Association of Georgia has done a great job, as you mentioned, of bringing all the banks, many of the banks around our state together to help them learn, educate. And if you think about 2019, that was kind of the peak of fintech, kind of 19, and then going into the COVID period. That was the buzzword. It was talked about in our industry a lot, and I'd say more folks became aware of these types of the innovation that was happening and the types of partnership opportunities that were available. As more folks became aware of that, particularly the CBA and John McNair, we determined that, hey, we need to make more of an effort with our banks around innovation specifically. Mm-hmm. So formed the Innovation Committee in late 2019. It was about, it's about bringing the community together and bringing the various organizations and our other technology organizations in our community together. And so, one of our first events, we partnered with the ATDC, which is Georgia Tech's incubator accelerator. It's been around for many years, very well known. We partnered with them to do an event, have some companies present to our bankers, and just sort of let them get a feel for what's happening in the startup and technology world. And then COVID of course happened, and on the one hand we weren't able to get together and do meetings, but on the other hand, fintech, as I mentioned, was becoming even bigger. And so we started doing monthly meetings with our community bankers. We've got about roughly 20 to 25 member participants who join our calls every month. And these banks are from all places around the state. There are a few that are kind of in the metro Atlanta area. There's some South Georgia and kind of rural areas, and there's some, kind of in the mountainous, kind of Blue Ridge areas of North Georgia. So we've got a pretty diverse group geographically. And, we come together and, like I say, try to educate. Some of our member banks were very green in terms of technology. They were just starting to think about their journey. And then we had some member banks that, were kind of far down a path in terms of a strategy to leverage kind of technologies and partnerships available. So we had a pretty wide spectrum of knowledge and experience, and we try to bring these folks together, and we have speakers, folks like you, come in and give their perspective on what they're seeing in the market. You have a great perspective on the market, right? You've got that really
Yeah.
good 30,000 foot view. And so
Yeah.
kind of hearing from folks like you is super helpful for us too. But that's a little bit about kind of the origin of it.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. And thanks for the kind words. And then you brought in this young fella over here, Christian. I know you joined, and I think, Christian, we've had you on before. I know you had a conversation with Brian Love, and I think it was called This Banker Wears a Hat or something like that. But welcome back. And I know, Christian, you started a fintech, you sold a fintech, you've been in banking. What made you kind of, I know you've known Chris for a while. What brought you, or what was interesting about this committee where you wanted to co-chair with Chris?
So I joined the committee as a member for, I don't know how long, maybe a couple months. And it was good. I mean, it's the same kind of stuff that you want to see. It's an opportunity just to see new fintechs coming up, being around people that are kind of having the same conversations. Once I joined, I think the reason why I was interested in joining is just because, there's so many community banks that are really small, just focused on their communities. And it's obviously a number that's shrinking because the bigger institutions are coming in and acquiring. I like the idea of being able to provide banking services to a community that you know better than anyone. And so my hope is that the institutions that want to do that are able to continue doing that and aren't kind of forced out. I understand the acquisition stuff. It makes sense. That is a strategy that a lot of banks go after. However, there's a lot of banks that I think aren't able to stay by themselves because of just things growing and them not able to keep up in terms of technology. So enabling them to be able to make the decision that's best for them, best for their customers, I think is important, and not kind of forcing them to be put in a situation where they have to make a decision that they don't want to make. So the technology side of that, I think, is a huge reason why the bigger banks are getting bigger and the smaller banks are struggling to keep up, because it's just so much easier to be efficient if you're using the right technology. So that's why I was interested in kind of being there and working and hoping it's something that I have the privilege to be able to focus my entire time on, is just looking at companies and understanding how to make these banks more efficient. Whereas most bankers have to focus on running the bank and the day-to-day stuff. I don't have to be as involved with those things just because that's specifically my job. So being able to share some of that with other institutions that might not have a position like we do is something that I think is a cool opportunity.
Yeah, I'll just add, Keith, Christian's been a great compliment to me. I kind of think of him as the flip side of, the other of the coin. I've always kind of been focused externally on revenue generation, deposits, fees, partnerships, whereas as Christian just said, he's internally focused, right, to reduce inefficiencies in the bank, increase, innovation, technology, automation at the bank. And so we really complement each other well to bring kind of two different perspectives to our members.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I think Christian probably feels the same, right? Yeah. And there's so many fintechs out there. I feel like I read about, or I find out about new fintechs. You can call it fintech, you can call it bank tech, reg tech. When I'm thinking of non kind of sponsor bank technology companies that are helping to streamline, to help banks. It's overwhelming to me how many there are. Do you get that question a lot from the member banks? People coming to you, asking you questions, advice? What do you think of this company? Do you make recommendations? Christian, a ton of the companies out there. You're working with a lot of them. Do you have a lot of the member banks that are just kind of starting their journey, maybe down that road, come to you as co-chairs, or is it part of the discussion of the committee?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fun part of being a part of any in community like that is you've got people that are thinking about the same kind of stuff, and so you're able to kind of run ideas by people, ask for advice. In terms of there being so many fintechs, I think that is something that stresses a lot of bankers out, when in reality you should only be thinking about the fintechs that solve the problem you're trying to solve. And
Exactly.
so I think the only time that it really makes sense to really try to keep a tag on everything that's going on is if that's your job, that's your one focus.
Mm-hmm.
But even for myself, I'll meet with any kind of new fintech, but ultimately I try to make it clear to them the only way that we're going to work with a new company is if it's a part of our roadmap. We're not going to just go sign a fintech just because we think it's a good idea. Most fintechs do bring some kind of value. And so if we were to sign every fintech that could work or we expect to provide some kind of value, we would never be able to get stuff done. Mm-hmm. So for us, the focus is more, let's focus on our roadmap. What's the next 3 to 2 years look like? And then find the fintechs that solve those problems. So just getting that across to banks who are newer into the innovation process is the first big step. And that's a lot of what we've kind of been transitioning to, is not just bringing fintechs to look at, but actually helping institutions that are interested in working with bank tech, helping them set up the processes, helping them understand what needs to happen in order to work with a bank technology company. And there is a lot, but once you've done it once or twice, it really does become much easier to do. And so for the banks in the committee that have done it consistently, I think we all provide good insights to the banks that really want to get there. And I think we have seen multiple banks since I've joined that went from, hey, we're trying, or we might be working with one, to now we're having conversations about which one's next, solving specific problems. Ultimately, the goal is to take every bank that wants to get there in Georgia from, hey, we really want to become more efficient and use technology, to one of us who are all just having conversations around which technology are you looking at to solve which problems.
Yeah. And Chris, the first step is the hardest, right? I would think, for the smaller banks.
Yeah, Christian's really brought kind of, I guess, relatability and that boots on the ground perspective to the committee. And we sort of, like he said, refocused on getting them to just try something, right? I mean, just go ahead and take that step off, into the pool. Mm-hmm. And so Christian's done a great job of that and kind of relating how to think about the process and kind of how he's done things at Colony, think a little more strategically, be a little bit more focused, and just do something. Because once you've done it once, the fear is gone. Mm-hmm. Mostly, and like I said, you can start to create a process that's repeatable, and so that's really what we've been focused on this probably for the past 12 months is kind of taking it back and say, all right, guys, let's focus, and you really just need to just try this, work with a company. It could be something as simple as a chatbot. A lot of community banks don't want to, they have a view on chatbot. Well, we're very relationship based. We talk to our customers in person. Well, there's a certain segment of your customers that had probably, had rather chatbot. And so try it. And if you don't like it, you can cancel it. But at least you've taken that first step.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And it must be wonderful to have, I think you have 150 banks or maybe even more in CBA of Georgia, to have a resource like this committee. So what's your vision for this committee going forward? As co-chairs, do you have ambitions for how you can present more technology to your member banks, or how you could be more of a resource? You guys have day jobs, obviously, very, very busy, but you also want to give back and you want to help, and that's why people join community bank organizations, and you guys heading the innovation committee, you really care about these banks and you want to help them. So what is kind of your vision, for the end of this year, heading into next year for this committee?
I mean, it's really more of the same, I guess, right? It's just continuing to keep folks educated. And, we both learn too. It's not, we're learning from these banks as they go through their challenges, and it helps give us a different perspective that maybe we hadn't thought of. And so help them kind of, oh, well, that makes sense. So let's maybe try this or talk to this type of company. So it's really just continuing to grow the group, continue the education and make sure Georgia banks are,
Yeah.
on par with the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Christian, I don't know if you have
And you,
anything to add?
Christian?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my hope is just that any bank that wants to use technology to further their vision isn't scared to do so, that we can provide the right resources, the right guidance to help them provide for their customers. And I think that we're doing that, but it's a complicated process. No bank is the same. So I think a lot of what we are learning is just, I can go into a bank, understand the problems, learn it over a couple months, and figure out exactly how to get to where we need to be. But doing that without knowing the super inner workings, the political side of the institution, that's really tough to do. So trying to just give them broad enough advice to help them navigate that, but specific enough to actually get things done. I think my hope is that we, as the committee, get better at walking people all the way through that process, no matter what their situation is. So really just empower the technological people inside the banks to be able to complete the tasks that they've been trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, Christian's in a unique spot, as he said earlier. He has the, privilege, as you said, to be in the spot where that's your job, is just to look at these things. And most banks don't have that.
Yeah.
They're focused on running the bank, maintaining customers, and don't have time to go look at all of these things. And so we're trying to just bring that visibility to them. And, we also try to get our members involved in the other community organizations. So I mentioned ATDC. We've also got Fintech Atlanta, which is a group of our large corporations that are trying to support the community, where we try to connect, earlier stage companies to our large, we've got Home Depot, Fiserv, we've got, very large companies here. So trying to connect those folks. Technology Association of Georgia is a large organization here focused on all aspects of technology. And we also have the Georgia Fintech Academy, which was a unique program that's now, statewide through the university system, where you can get, certificates or minors. And so we try to plug our community bankers into those organizations as a way to, complement the things we're doing with them. And so we kind of assign, if you want to say, 2 or 3 bankers to each organization. And they go to the events or the meetings or the calls or whatever it may be. And then they kind of report back to the group at our monthly meetings. And that way we're bringing as broad of a perspective of activity and happenings as we can.
Yeah. That's what's interesting about Georgia, Atlanta, especially. I think it's a hub of technology, right? There's a lot of different, fintech companies there. Like you said, the, Georgia Institute of Technology. So yeah, you have that unique perspective, because some states maybe don't have that type of robust technology industry within their state. So being in Georgia and being such a hub of activity for financial companies and larger companies puts you in a great spot, and gives you the way to relay this information back to your member banks and say, this is what is happening here. Maybe you want to come to this meeting. Maybe come join us here. We're going to invite speakers in, that type of thing. So there's a lot you can do with having all those technology companies in your backyard. That's great. That's great.
And we have, I said, folks like you with kind of that 30,000 view. We'd like to have folks present to the group as well, whether that's attorneys who are focused on this, or accountants, those kind of providers that have that perspective, that broader perspective. We bring them in, just kind of give their view and market update, and that's been interesting. It's obviously been a lot of happenings in this space over the past 12 months in the news and headlines, and so a lot of our bankers were wanting to understand that better and learn more. And so we brought an attorney who was sort of somewhat involved with that couple of those situations, and kind of give a little bit deeper dive, and folks really enjoyed that.
Yeah, risk compliance. Geez, the changing landscape. It's wild. Any final thoughts, Christian? On the committee or technology or innovation in general going forward.
Well, that's a very broad question.
Yeah, that's what I said. You can always say no final thoughts, but
I'll just say on the committee, if you're a bank in Georgia or even the Southeast in general, reach out. We've got a couple of events coming up that we're really trying to hone in on how to communicate going from 0 to 1 on the banking technology kind of front. So we've got two, we call them tech talks, one in a couple of weeks here, and then one in November. The one in August is in South Georgia, and the one in November is in Atlanta. It is November, right, Chris?
I believe so, yeah.
In Atlanta. So reach out, CBA of Georgia. The last event was really good, and you have a bunch of people that just, all we were doing was talking really specifics on how to get started and how to improve your internal processes for working with fintech. So I think it was good. And if you're not a bank but you are a fintech or something and wanting to get involved, you can reach out as well. And we'd love, Lindsay is the right person to talk to for the CBA of Georgia. They're invested in making it work. And Chris and I are just here to have fun and help them out.
Right. Facilitate.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic, and thank you both for your time. I've worked with Lindsay, to get Travillian on board with this great organization, and no, it's fantastic, and we all have the same mission, right? We want to help. We want to help these community banks, the underdogs. I like to call them the underdogs because they don't have billions of dollars to spend on technology and a workforce of 50,000 working on AI projects. So, you have to think strategically, and having leaders such as yourself helping them is fantastic. And now look forward to, I'll be at that event in Atlanta in November. Look forward to, meeting more of your members and, just talking about technology and how Travillian can help and just learning more. Like you said, Chris, it's learning from them also on how we can help. So, no, thank you both. Really appreciate your time. And CBA of Georgia, take a look at it. Great organization, and you get to speak and meet with Christian and Chris. So that might be worth the price of admission right there. But no, thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you, Keith. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.